My kids say I speak too loud, but obviously I don't. So our first speaker today is Ray Torres. He's a third-generation Arizona native of Mexican and French descent. Ray is also, I'm sorry for all your Arizona fans, an Arizona State University guy. So he's an ASU guy. He earned his bachelor's degree in political science. And Ray served as a field minority relations director to U.S. Congressman J.D. Hayward, and recently served as director of communications for the minority caucus of the Arizona House of Representatives. That's what I meant. Majority. Always a majority. Sorry about that. Since 2004, Ray has been a member of the Arizona Latino Republican Association, ALRA, where he held various leadership positions such as director of communications. In 2011, he was elected president of ALRA and currently serves in that capacity. Please welcome Ray Torres.
One of the great things that brought us here, one of the great things that makes this country unique and fantastic, is what makes it American. You can come from anywhere in the world, whether you're from Bosnia, whether you're from Mexico, whether you're from Croatia, Russia, you can call yourself an American. That is a unique thing. That is a unique characteristic of this country that cannot be replicated by any other. And I'll give you this little anecdotal story of how that even happened to me in the reverse, getting back to what I call the mothership, Mexico. I lived in Mexico City for a year, went to law school, attended law school at the University of the Americas, and found out very quickly from my associates in my program, I was not a Mexican. You cannot be from another country and live in Mexico and call yourself a Mexican. They have a multitude of names that they will call you, but you're not a Mexican. And even though, as it said in my bio, I'm of Mexican descent, they still didn't accept me. I knew more about Mexico than they could ever hope to, by the way. My Spanish, they all told me, was impeccable. And I was still not accepted as one of them. It's so unique about this country. It has made my family, for generations, so enamored of what it's given us. That led me to believe and live out this belief that there was only one party that has really guaranteed that for us in these last generations, in these last electoral cycles in which I've been politically active. The Republican Party is more than just something that is a brand for me. As a Latino, and as many other Latinos do, political identity is also part of your cultural identity. And the reason why this is important is because so many Republicans have asked a lot of people, and scratched their heads ad nauseum, what happened the last electoral cycle, last presidential cycle, and what's been happening with Latinos. 17% of this state right now, for example, is Roman Catholic. The dogmatic beliefs of the Roman Catholic faith, which I happen to adhere to, are, for the most part, absolutely inconsistent with the platforms of the Democrat Party, as they stand right now.
Amen.
Could not be more inconsistent. The vast majority of the almost 30% of Latinos in this state happen to be Roman Catholic. Their values, their traditions, their beliefs also happen to be inconsistent with the Democrat Party and the Democrat platforms. So what is happening? Why did, in this last electoral cycle, so many Latinos vote for Barack Obama? It's not a mystery to me, being inside the culture, but it might be a mystery to a lot of other people. I go back to that issue of identity. And the little history lesson that I always like to teach is that when John F. Kennedy was first running for president, and he was running in Texas, and when he first addressed Latinos as a political group to be focused on, that was not lost on Latinos. Latinos went and registered in droves as Democrats and developed that as their political identity. It was never contested. It was never challenged. It was never successfully turned around. And that is one of the challenges that we face now in the Republican Party. Because so many generations afterwards didn't say, well, they didn't ask themselves, what should I be when I go register for a political party? My mom's a Republican, or my mom's a Democrat, my dad's a Democrat, my aunts and uncles and all my friends and neighbors are Democrats. I really don't have any reason to be anything different. Yeah, they support abortion. Yeah, they support things that I'm not really necessarily attracted to, but we're all Democrats. There's no reason to change. And when they think about Republicans, what is the first thing that they think of? In my bio, we did talk about how my first political job was working for Congressman J.D. Hayworth. And fantastic man to work for. It was the most phenomenal job that you could hope to get coming right out of college. But my cousin, who happens to be the mayor of Guadalupe, probably the most highly concentrated community of Latinos in the entire state of Arizona, when I first told her that I was working for JD, she said, wait a minute, he's a Republican, right? I said, yes. Man, you're a Republican? Yes. Don't you know that Republicans are for rich white people? I said, yeah, I don't want to be poor my whole life. But that was her first reaction, without even thinking. The idea of what a Republican is happens to be so in the mind of a lot of politically just uneducated Latinos. The first idea that comes to their mind is that they have to be white, they have to be rich, and they have to hate poor people. That is the mentality, which is so difficult to overcome when you have somebody right when you could be a fantastic, phenomenal candidate, a Republican with great ideals, with great ideologies, that has everything that is completely consistent with that Latino that's sitting in front of you. But the minute that they know you have an R next to your name on the ballot, you're already pinned. You're already defined. You can say anything you want, and it does not matter. So what's going to change that? Because I'm not here to tell you folks today that the Republican Party needs to change its platform at all. Not one iota. The Republican Party's platform still, to this day, is consistent with Latino ideologies, with the faith that unites most Latinos, culturally and spiritually. What needs to change are more Latinos running for public office. That has to be what bridges the gap of identity. So many in our endeavors across the state, the Arizona Latino Republican Association, and talking to conservative Latinos all over the state, we found that so many of them, especially in rural parts of Arizona, had no idea that they even had an option to ever vote for a Republican. And you know why? Because Republicans never run in their districts. There are so many majority-minority districts around the state, even before this last electoral census of redistricting, that have never even had the opportunity to vote for a Republican. So when they go down the ticket, they see D, 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 D. So when you come to a gubernatorial candidate who's running in a statewide election, or a Secretary of State candidate, or a presidential candidate, if they're already enamored or just ingratiated with the idea that all I have to vote for is a D, what makes you think that they're going to vote for a Republican candidate for governor or a Republican candidate for president? It's just not going to happen. So one of the missions that we have engaged in is to make sure that wherever we can be effective, that we recruit and find and support and connect with resources, candidates who happen to be conservative, Latino Republicans. That is how we're going to change the dynamic of this state so that we do not turn into Colorado. So that we do not turn into the problems that happened in that state while nobody was watching. Nobody believed when Colorado was transitioning purple that it would happen. Everybody thought, a lot of people in Colorado thought, just like we do here in Arizona. We are a red state. Well, what happened in our last congressional cycle? We turned more blue than red. Our congressional delegation in a red state is more blue than red. How does that happen? I know redistricting has a lot to do with it, and I'm definitely no fan of the RRC. But still, that is part of the reality that we're dealing with. It's one of the things that does, and I'll take this back to the presentation that happened before, it's one of the things that does make me extremely proud of being from Pinal County, of living here in Santan Valley, and seeing the good work that not only Seraphim has done, and I applaud you, Seraphim, for everything that you've done to keep us together in this county, but also a lot of the candidates and how we have, as Republicans in this county, have reacted to political, political campaigns and political competition. From a Latino perspective, when a young Latino, especially right now in this current context, is forming their own identity and looking at, maybe questioning whether or not they can become a Democrat or whether or not they are just going to stay in that party or become a Republican. There's nothing more antagonistic to that idea of becoming a Republican than seeing internal fighting, than seeing somebody slinging mud at another person after the general is engaged in. As Republicans, as conservatives, we are fantastically unique in being very individualistic, and that is an awesome thing. We're not going to be led around by the noses and be told by any party who we should be voting for in a primary, or who we should be voting for in any election after or before the primary is engaged in. If we have political differences, that's the proper time and place for it, to be bashed out. Let's pull each other's hair, let's punch each other in the face and get it all done with and all over. But when the dust settles, when the fights are all over and we figured out who's going to be our nominee, we coalesce, we come together, and we support the nominee for the party. We are either a party united or no party at all. And when that happens, you will see the more attractive nature to people from the outside and see that that's a group I want to be part of. Now they're not only winning, but they're staying together after their internal battles are over. After their internal competition has taken place, they support the nominee. That is an attractive thing. Because without that, let's make no mistake, folks, the number 2 party in the state is not Democrats. They're independents. They're free game for both parties. Both parties should be watching them. A lot of Latinos are going independent, especially in my generation. They don't like either party. They see that, they're tired of, I mean, it's so, typical. I think it's because they just don't want to get involved and don't want to actually work sometimes. But I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to be part of the political fighting. But when they see that there is a party that definitely represents their ideologies and also provides unity amongst whatever group is coming together, that is attractive. So that's what really happened last electoral cycle. So going forward, what can you do? Let's say you as an individual here in Pinal County or any county you reside in, you ask yourself, well, I'm not Latino. What can I do? I don't even speak Spanish. What can I do? Well, we do. That is something that we can do. One of the fun things that we accomplish throughout the state is when Univision, Telemundo, Televisa, Prensa Hispana wants a Republican response for something that's happening in the news, who do you think they come to? These guys. They come to us. Because we're the only Republican organization in the state that can actually articulately speak to subject matter important to Republicans in Spanish is absolutely indispensable. Because otherwise it goes, like in a number of other elections, it goes uncontested in the media. There are so many times when things are happening in our state where they'll have a multitude of different people who are on the left side of an issue on Univision or Televisa or Telemundo, and Republicans get no play. Republicans get no response because they don't have anybody who can actually articulately speak the language. And it's not enough to just be able to say that, yeah, I speak Spanish. Because you have to speak in a way that is not going to be tripped up. I'll give you an example. Jorge Ramos is like probably the most well-known commentators on Univision. And he delights in trying to speak as fast as possible when he's interviewing Republicans who think that they know Spanish. He loves doing that. He loves to tear them apart by using words he thinks they're not going to know and speak 1,000,000 miles a minute and then ask, what do you think? Afterwards. And it makes them look foolish when they're tripped up. It is really a problem that a number of Republicans have had, and he preys upon them. So that's one of the things that we have here in not just Phoenix, but also Tucson. And we're building across the state. But it's one of those things that you have to have as an indispensable tool in your kit. Communication is everything. Without it, you can have the greatest message in the world, but if it's not properly translated, if it's not properly communicated, it's not only insulting to the person that's on the other end, but it does not achieve its ultimate goal, which is trying to impart the vast amount of similarity between the Republican platform and the Latino community. So with that, I want to go ahead and challenge you folks that if you have any friends of yours that are looking for a place to coalesce, are looking for an organization to unite with, send them our way. But on your own volition, if you want to help us, like I said before, you don't have to be Latino or Latina. You just have to have $17.76. And we have registration forms right over here. And Diego, who is our secretary for the executive chapter in Phoenix. Not that chapter. Diego, raise your hand, please.
Diego with the bow tie.
Yeah, Diego with the bow tie. The man with the money has always got the bow tie. If you come see him, we'd love to have you become a member of ALRA. We also would love to have you come and address all the candidates here in the room. We'd love to have you come and address our membership at our event on 4 de Mayo, which is going to be falling on a Sunday, because 5 de Mayo happens to fall on Monday this year. But we're going to have an event in Chandler, which will be in conjunction with my performance of my symphony, the Chandler Symphony, largest symphony in the state of Arizona. And right afterwards, we're going to have an event in downtown Chandler where we're going to showcase our electoral candidates who are running throughout the state. We have 4 running in this electoral cycle for the legislature around the state. One is Heidi Dawson in LD25, fantastic lady. She's first generation Salvadorian from El Salvador, conservative as they get. Sometimes makes me look a little liberal. Then we have down in LD2 in the state senate, Daniel Estrella, former Marine, and now is in the U.S. Army Reserves. Fantastic gentleman, and is also one of our board members in the Tucson chapter. He's running to send now Senator D'Alessandro back to New Jersey, hopefully. And then we also have Leilani Cortez, who's running in LD24. The angriest little man that ever served in the legislature, Chad Campbell, is now turned out, thank God, and is leaving an open seat there. So we want to send him back to Munchkin Land. But Leilani definitely could use some support because she's running conventional. So is Heidi. And Daniel is running, he's running clean. And last but certainly not least, our the highest ranking elected Latino conservative in the state of Arizona, State Representative Steve Montenegro, running seeking re-election to represent the people of LD 13. A hardcore conservative that matches absolutely everything that ALRA stands for as far as political philosophy is concerned. He needs your support. So those are some of the ways you can definitely not just help us, but help our candidates, but also help the party in putting a different face on the party. And I'll leave you with this last thing. When people talk about Arizona, when people talk about our state, and they try to define us, especially people who, I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but if you're not from Arizona, I consider you a foreigner. California's included. But if they talk about our state and say that it's a racist state, or that it's a bigoted state, or that it's a homophobic state, it drives me insane. Because one of the reasons why my family came in 1915 and stayed, they're so god-awful boring, none of them left, is because this state offered us so much in a way that none other could. My dad is from Texas, where they had institutionalized segregation, where they had schools where he was punished for speaking Spanish, where he was not able to go to certain restaurants and certain movie theaters and drink out of certain drinking fountains. That's Texas's legacy. That was not ours. One of the things that kept us here was the true delivery on the philosophy of universal protection under the law. Our family has enjoyed in this state since 1915 and continue to do so. So, I would like that to continue to be a persona that we can project, and the way that we're going to most effectively do that is make sure that when Latino Republican candidates run for office, they have the support of the party, they have the support of the people, and that they are successful. And with your help, I know we will do all of that. Thank you so much, guys. And Beth, thank you so much for calling my attention to one of the other candidate. Now, I have to define our mission, Beth, specifically that we are engaged in promoting and supporting legislative candidates on down the ticket. That is our priority, that is our mission. But one of the persons that is actually doing what I talked about earlier, where Republicans have never had a tradition in running, is Gabby Saucedo-Mercer. She is running in a district dominated by one family, as we call him the Walrus, but Raul Grijalva. But it's not just at the congressional level. We have his daughter, Adelita, on the Tucson Unified School District School Board, poisoning a lot of our generation students with ethnic studies classes and a twisted idea of what it is to be an American and where you are as a Latino in this country. She's making the fight where it needs to be, in the lion's den. And so we encourage you to also help Gabby as much as you can. Our specific responsibility as far as ALRA is concerned is from the legislative level on down, but Gabby definitely could very much use your support. She's a fantastic lady. If you haven't had the opportunity to meet her, her and Ted are phenomenal people. So I encourage you, if you'd like to get more information or get connected with her, I can do that for you as well. So thank you, Beth, for reminding me. I appreciate that. And yeah, let's move on forward to victory 2014 and 16.